Hi everyone, and I dragged my casual arse into the first LFR wing of the Liberation of Undermine today, and I'm now in a sort of bouncing around different games mode. Lotro launching their new servers this week, so that's very much featuring in my playtime as well. But new season and now new raid, and I'd been looking forward to the Goblin raid. It'll look fun at the very least, but now that I'm casual, I don't do any testing or anything. I just let it all be a surprise. I don't look out for any news. When it comes out, that's the first time I'm going to see it. So I went in knowing nothing other than we were killing goblins for other goblins. Now, I would say that Blizzard have really improved the LFR experience after the first tier of Dragonfly. It's now consistently fun without bosses which wipe you all day and make you hate the human race. You know, because the idea is you're trying to get non-raiders to do vaguely raid things. You can only lead into that so much. But I am starting to see a bit of a consistent curse here. Despite the general relative story mode of LFR now, which is what it's for, let's be honest, there is a bit of a curse of the second boss emerging. Back during the first tier of Dragonfly, the odd boss was a bit tricky. Razageth was a nightmare. Typically took about 5 to 6 wipes before a kill, as positioning was so important for not just a few players, but everyone. Everyone needed to do some things. In fact, so much did doing Razageth on, I used to do it on about half a dozen characters a week to sort of split it between the 13 characters I was doing it on a regular basis. It gave me PTSD for the next tier. I refused to do Sarkareth for ages. I just wouldn't do it. I didn't care what it could drop. I would try and get it from the vault instead. Then eventually I forgot why I refused to do it. Maybe I was drunk. I don't remember. I gave it a go. It was like, oh, this is fine. It was almost always a one-shot. Occasionally you would wipe once and then you would kill it the next time. They'd actually made the boss LFR friendly. But in amongst the mess of that first tier, the second boss was also a source of repeated wipes. Almost as bad as Razageth in some ways, only the wipes were at least mercifully shorter. Then the same thing in Aberrus. Amalgamation was always a 50-50 in my experience in LFR. And my experience, as I say, was having one of each class going through LFR on basically a weekly basis. I had plenty large sample size, right? Somewhat diminished in War Within because I am playing other games, so I haven't got one of each class this time, but I've still got most of them. It did get broken a little bit in Amydrasil, this curse. So it wasn't developing as a curse at the time. That was a pretty good raid for a casual scrub. That was pretty decent. The worst part was not spawning at the last boss if you died en route until it had been pulled. And some struggled to find their way back. But then into War Within. And the curse of the second boss I started to think there is a bit of a thing here. Nerubar Palace with the horror boss. Pain in the arse trash that took ages. And then again, 50-50 whether you'd even kill the boss. And the thing that always, and I mean always, wiped the boss was actually someone who knew how to do the boss. It wasn't someone who was like an LFR noob. It was someone who raids. Someone who's used to doing it on normal or heroic and insisting on doing it that way. Forgetting that over a dozen LFR players are not going to move unless there's fire under their feet. And even then, not always. You would beg with the tanks, move the cone to the players, not the other way around. No, this is how we do it on superior difficulties. The players should move. Yes, but they won't. They've been conditioned to not stand in tank cones. Also, it's effort. It's a funny thing with raiding tanks sometimes. Sometimes they will wipe you because they don't realise LFR players aren't hearing their imaginary voice comms. And sometimes they will wipe you because they have too much faith in you and pull all the trash between the bosses. It's always either overestimating or underestimating the players. Never anywhere in between. But anyway, I'm not having a pop at tanks. God bless them. It's just curious that in 4 of the last 5 LFR raids now, including the current one, I'm starting to see a pattern of me basically thinking, yeah, I want to avoid the second boss as much as possible as soon as I can. Not the last boss. You know, Ansarek, for example, I did that don't know how many times across all my characters last season. wiped once, literally once. And that wasn't even when the raid was fresh out, it was just a random wipe. LFR has swung around a lot from its first incarnation during Cataclysm. I mean, that was a bit tricky. To like the training wheels easy of Warlords of Draenor. I think where it's been since Aberrus, pretty good place. You can still be punished if at least a few people don't do something, but you're not punished if most of the raid have no idea what to do. And why should they? Like, I used to raid properly, so I have the raid skill set. I still use DBM. I don't look up tactics now, but I use DBM to give me some prompts. But I'm not looking up guides. Like, that's not what LFR's for. It's not even for casual players. Like, LFR is not for casual players. You can be casual and still do normal mode. LFR is for people who do not even want the semblance of organised raiding. Don't talk to me. I know I need the rest of you. Don't talk to me. Kill this thing and let's move on with our lives. So it's for people who want that in and out, get the story done, get the loot done, want to enjoy the content. It's like solo play, but with other players. But those other players will be doing their own thing, which is where I think the second boss in LFR, Rick Reverb, I think has gone a bit wrong. You can deal with the amplifiers if just a few people drain them. So that's fine. That's absolutely fine. You just need a few people to know to do that. As soon as I knew to do that, I was absolutely fine. It's the getting knocked up. It's a little bit back into Razageth territory, isn't it? You have to stand at this place to get knocked up. And it seems like, you might say it seems like Ansarek mechanic, but it's not. See, for her poison wave, for example, you didn't need to get knocked up. As long as you were a bit away from her, you could just headbutt the poison wave. Sometimes the boss would be on top of the thing you had to stand on. I couldn't quite see it. So I would just move away and headbutt the poison wave. No problem. So realistically, that was never going to kill many. It always seemed to kill a demon hunter in my experience. Not sure why that was. It's the same with the platforms. Like on Ansarek, players could be stood all over the place, contemplating passing butterflies. Wouldn't matter. The game would knock them to a suitable platform, no matter where you were. It's like they'd learnt from Razageth. Even if you fell off. I actually got pulled off a platform once. I'm embarrassed to say so, but I did. You get ported back up very much alive and well. LFR at its finest, trivialising even the end boss, whilst letting you think you're doing mechanics. I mean, for actual raiding, there are 3 modes. There's normal, heroic and mythic. That means there's a suitable level of difficulty for literally every type of player who wants the coordinated teamwork experience. LFR is not that. But on Rick Reverb, you do actually need to move your arse somewhere specific. And it's easy to know where. There's a big old blue circle, but you still need to know you have to do that. Then you have to move somewhere else, then move somewhere else. So it took exactly 3 attempts on both of the characters I ran it on today. Now, it's not the worst thing, but I do get a feeling now in the pit of my stomach that as soon as other wings are out and I can get 6 bosses without that, I'm going to be missing that boss out, I think. Unless, of course, some of the other bosses are even worse. I do hope not. I mean, let's say how it shapes up in a few weeks' time. Blizzard have of late been mostly remembering that LFR players essentially want training dummies that drop loot. Hopefully they remember for the rest of the bosses. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to drop a like, and until next time, I'll see you later.